Hey there. So there is a difference between imposter syndrome and just flat out being an imposter. My name is Jennifer Mitchell Early. I help individuals and teams achieve organizational and personal success. And this is Leadership Matters. I just wanted to talk to you today about the difference between imposter syndrome and just flat out being an imposter. I know that today things are a little scary in the job market if you find yourself out and about and looking for employment, that there is a lot being said about resumes and presenting yourself, and some people are having hard times getting interviews, and while other people are interviewing and still not being able to get the position. And so everyone's trying to figure out how to best present themselves, right? So do I need to take off some of my education on my resume? Should I dumb some of my experience down? Should I play some of my experience up? What's the best way to proceed? And whatever you determine to do, I myself am not one that will remove my experiences. I mean, I think your resume is supposed to have a snapshot of the last 10 years of your work history, and I've done that just to keep it to 2 pages, which has been for me an extremely difficult task to whittle down because I've been in leadership development for a long time. I've been in learning and development for 25 years, and I've been a manager outside of that time. I've always been in some type of leadership role in my public facing life when I was an elected official. So it's been challenging for me to think about, how do we get that all down into 2 pages where someone, I think they say you have like 30 seconds or less for someone to look at your resume before they move on, or whatever the case may be. But the one thing I do know, the one thing that I haven't changed in and changed my perspective on, or my outlook on, or my thoughts about, is having morality in the way that you conduct your job search and the way that you interview. And that's what brings me to the point that there's a difference between imposter syndrome and just flat out being an imposter. Imposter syndrome is when, and this is in Jennifer phrase, right? Jennifer E's, in my own way of thinking about it and defining it. Imposter syndrome is when you compare yourself to others, you don't see what you bring to the table. Like, you don't give yourself the credit due for your skill set, for your knowledge, for your expertise, your experience, the work that you've done, the research, any of those things, right? Where you don't give yourself the credit that you are due, the credit that you have worked for, the credit that you deserve. Because you look at yourself and you don't see how you fit into something. I think that's more of a personal issue that we have to come to terms with. And I've talked about before my own case of imposter syndrome, working with a client and getting down to the wire on a go live and not really knowing if I could pull it out, and not being put to that type of test before, where I was so time constrained and had to, make a way out of no way and, start to make demands for what I needed to get the job done and all of those things. So if you haven't seen that, I'll put it in the description box below. Oh, Lord. In the description box below, or I'll link it somewhere up in here. But that was my experience with imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is a real thing. People really feel like they don't have what it takes to get things done. But when given the opportunity, they surprise themselves. They come through because whatever they needed was really in them. They already had the skill set. They already had the experience. They already had the knowledge. They already had the expertise. What they did not have was faith in themselves. That's what they needed. They needed some confidence, right? Self-confidence. And once you do things enough times and you have enough successes in it, it starts to build confidence. You have confidence in your skill set. You have confidence in the job you can do. I know what I can do based on the experiences that I've had and the opportunities that I've been given to show others, and more importantly, to show myself what I was made of and what I was capable of and what I could do. Now, having said that, I just want to caution you to not be an imposter. There's a difference between thinking, oh God, I don't know if I can do this because you haven't been pushed to do it, and knowing full freaking well you can't do it. Okay? Selling somebody a bill of goods knowing full well you have no idea, you have no knowledge, you have nothing to lean back on, you have no skill set, zero, zip, zilch. Let me caution you in this time when we're all trying to figure out how to move forward, whether that's if you're in between projects, if you're in between clients, you have your own business, if you're in between positions and you're looking for an FTE, a full-time exempt role, then let me caution you, do not sell someone something, i.e. yourself, your skill set, your potential, your capabilities, your expertise, your experience, and you don't have it. And you know you don't have it. Let me just tell you, that's going to end very, very badly for you, for your clients, for your stakeholders, for your consumers, for any employees you're engaging with. I know there's a lot of people that are making transitions out of one area in their career life into another. And I have talked about that multiple times on this channel and talked about how you can start from zero, from nothing, and build up. And I've also talked about, even in my leadership videos and episodes, about how important truth is, how critical truth is in every facet of your life. Do not leave job searching, interviewing out of that. It's very important that you are forthright with people, what you can do and what you can't do. What made me so good, and I said this almost verbatim to one of my clients, what makes me so good is the fact that I can tell you what I can do, and I'm honest about what I can't do. I cannot talk to engineers about an advanced metering infrastructure, point blank, period. I can build training. I can speak to the transfer of training. I can talk to you about, how to set up the training, how to engage your learners, how to evaluate I can go through all of that, but I cannot talk to an engineer about how to be an engineer because I'm not an engineer. Okay? Real simple. I have found that it is very important to set expectations. If you've been following me for any length of time, then you understand I am an advocate for setting expectations. I set expectations in every area of my life, personally, professionally, when I take the dog to the groomer or when I take the dog to be boarded. Help me set my expectations. What should I expect are the services you're going to provide for my dog while she's in your care? Talk to me about how many times she's going to go out the potty. Talk to me about how you feed them and what rounds do you do that. How often you clean their kennels. All of that. Help me set my expectations so that I'm not disappointed and I'm not expecting you to do something that it was never in your realm of services to offer me. So I say that to say that now is a time that we really need to be authentic. We need to be forthright. I can tell you from someone who goes from project to project, client to client, job to job, whatever. I am always looking for and appreciative of someone who is forthright, because there's nothing worse than you telling me something that does not exist. It's nothing worse for me because now you've destroyed any trust and any credibility that you may have had. And more so than that if I sign up for A and your part of the contract was not valid, that means that I have no obligation to stay and to make good on what I said I was going to do, because this was invalid to begin with, because what you presented was not the truth. So don't be an imposter. If you have the skill set, then talk about your skill set in your interview. I've talked about before going through a job description and matching it with your resume and then thinking about your experiences. If you're like me and you've been working for longer than 20 years in one area, you're not going to remember every single experience or job opportunity that you've had. You're not going to remember all the nuances at the very least. You might remember your title. You might remember a manager or a client or a colleague. You may remember if you worked with a consulting agency. You may remember all those things, but the nuances, the details, sometimes I don't remember things that I have developed, things that I literally have, like the tangible, I have it in my hands. I have the document. I have the guide. Sometimes I don't remember it because I did it and other things have happened in my life. Life continued to move on. Opportunities continue to move on. My development continued to move on. And not to mention the fact that I have been in private life and political life at the same time. So some of that stuff just gets to be a hodgepodge in my memories over time. Until you bring me back to something specific, or unless something really stood out and it stands out in my mind where I would remember. By nuances, I mean the details of everything that went into that particular experience, especially if you spent some time there. If you spent years there, you're not going to remember every single thing that happened, that you touched, or that you developed, or that you created, or all the feedback that you've received, or any of that. So when I say to, make sure that you can do what you say you can do. I mean, think about that. When you go before your interview and I say compare your, your resume to the job description, I mean, sit there and give it some time, give it some space, really think about, what did I do? How did I do it? Who did it impact? How does it relate to this job description? And then when I told you about keeping notes I talked about it for a learning and development position, but this is for everything, people. Keep notes on what you did. Keep notes. If you don't have a portfolio or a website or anything that highlights, and even for me, I have both. I have a consulting company, and then I have my jennifermitchellearly.com website where I have my portfolio. That portfolio is probably my most recent year's work. I've been doing what I've been doing for 25 years. All 25 years are not encapsulated or depicted or demonstrated on that portfolio. And sometimes I forget, unless I'm looking through files, I'm going back through emails, or I'm looking for something specific and I stumble something like, oh my God, I forgot about this. I need to put this on my portfolio. So when you go back and you're preparing for your interview, think about those things. Go back, look through your files, look through your emails, think about times that you spent at companies. Go back, if you have any of your, if you memorialize anything from those times, go back and look at your records, electronic and otherwise. And then think about how those things do or do not relate to the job that you're going to interview for. The things that do relate, those are the things that you want to document in your notes to refresh your memory so that you can speak to them fluidly. And talk about, the particulars. Some things you're not going to remember. Sometimes I don't remember the division for a client I'm working for. I don't remember the department name, right? It's not a, general name. It was a name specific to that particular department within that division at that organization. I may not remember that, but I can describe the work that I did with them, the relationship I had with them, what that work entailed, sometimes approximate numbers. I'm not always gonna remember. Over 25 years, I have touched thousands. I'm not trying to be funny. I have talked to, trained, facilitated, led thousands of people at this point. I'm not going to remember all the details. And I don't think anyone has asked me to remember them. And I don't think anyone's going to ask you to remember all the details. But so that you can represent yourself correctly, I want you to do this exercise so that you will feel confident going in, which will lessen some of your, interviewing anxiety, and also bolster your self-confidence so that you don't suffer from imposter syndrome, that you know that you are capable of doing the things that you say that you're doing. And finally, so that you don't sell people a bill of goods. Like, hey, I can do blah, 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 and blah, and you can't do nothing. Because trust me when I say, it will come out. The cream rises to the top. And I'm going to just tell you, all the BS gets uncovered on a project or in a job. When deadlines come about and you say you can do something and people expect that you can do it, because when you say you can do it, that means you don't need undergirding. You don't need support. You don't need help outside of, this is the way that we do that here, that it looks like this here. But the core of it, the crux of it is the same wherever you go, except we customize it a bit because of our environment, whether it's the industry or the company or whatever. The expectation is that you will still be able to do the job that you said that you could do. So having said that, I want to say, don't have imposter syndrome. And please, for the love of God, don't be an imposter. Do the things Be able to do the things that you said that you could do. Look over your resume, and I'm going to end with this. If it don't fit, y'all, it just does not fit. I don't know what's worse. Going somewhere and a company tell you they're a certain way and you get there and you're like, oh, hecky no. This is not it. Or you telling a company that you're something and you get there and you get tested under the fire and you fail. And now everybody knows and the jig is up. It's so much easier to say, hey, I appreciate you're looking for X. Unfortunately, I don't have X. What I do have is Y, which is what has been represented in my resume. I am not here to misrepresent myself. These are the skills and the qualifications that I have. This is the job and experiences that I've had in the past, and what I was able to do for other clients and other opportunities. And this is what I can bring to the table for you. If it's a fit, great. Great. We can go off and, do what we do and work beautifully together and impact our customers and do the things that we said we were going to do. We can show up for them. If it's not a fit, thank you for your time and your consideration. Best wishes on your search and in your endeavors. And if you should be looking for someone who does what I do, I'd be happy to speak with you again. I hope that you found this video informative, and I hope that you will take it to heart. I know sometimes desperate times calls for desperate measures, or, depending on the situation. But I don't want you to be so desperate that you get yourself in a position that ultimately is very chaotic, destructive to you personally, destructive to your credibility, destructive to your reputation, destructive to the company who has hired you, when all of this can be ended in the screening process. When the company is interviewing you, you are also interviewing them. You want to make sure that even if it's your ideal job, if it's remote and you don't ever have to leave your house, if you can take meetings and never turn on the camera, if you have some autonomy and some flexibility and all of that, and everything lines up, you want to make sure that you can actually do the job. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more about, all things leadership and morality and, my life in general. I'm a coach of sorts. So leadership is my thing, training and development change and behavior change. And hopefully that we will change together and keep on moving on and progressing this thing called life and taking the journey and, getting where we're supposed to go, pursuing purpose. I'll see you in my next video.